a giant, a true Goliath. He probably weighs about 10 kilos. Bands of color sweep across his skin. That's how cuttlefish communicate. This smaller male couldn't possibly take him on. Beside Goliath and under his protection, a female who has just mated with him. But other rivals are still interested. It seems a small male wouldn't stand a chance. The female is now displaying a white stripe along her side nearest Goliath. It's a clear signal that she no longer wants to mate with him. It's all the encouragement that the little male needs. He's going to have to use trickery. He tones down his colors and tucks in his arms. He's just the right size to mimic a female. Goliath is deceived. The small male now displays a white stripe, just like the real female, to deter his advances. He slips beside her, and they mate. By mating with multiple partners, the female ensures the greatest genetic diversity for her young. The sneaky male leaves, his final act complete.
You ever get the feeling that everything in America is completely fucked up? You know that feeling that the whole country is like 1 inch away from saying, that's it, forget it. Let's see,
Hey, twist around. Now look, here's a house full of bees. You think the honey badger cares? It doesn't give a shit.
Listen, let's get one thing straight.
Price is right.
Guns don't kill people. I do.
Nice.
Thanks for that, Bill.
Stand up in the crowd and say, God bless America. God bless America. God bless America. I'm not ashamed to say I'm proud of this. I will never into my wall. An image of you and me, and we're laughing with love at it all. Look at our life now. Tattered and torn.
We run out of Tom Wood Show episodes. You know, that's not impossible. So check out Living the Tree Podcast.
And tears and we cry until dawn. Oh, Jack, hold me now. Oh, my heart
that bass tone?
I think some apologies are in order.
That's the fartiest bass tone ever recorded.
Totally. I was thinking that when I was listening to it for the recording. It's like, what is that? Like it's
that era. A lot of it's synth bass. Because remember we used to talk about like the most insane bass line you ever heard is in Wham's "Wake Me Up Before You Go Go," and it dawned on me like last summer. I'm like, oh, that's a synth bass. This guy playing it on the keyboard. There's no way a guy's playing that on the bass.
Do you think this song was all keyboard?
Could be.
Yeah.
My favorite thing about the Thompson twins is all the videos. There's 3 of them, and they're the Thompson twins. And the third guy was the black guy who was always playing the conga in the background. There's no congas on any of their songs. It's just kind of odd.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I'd never listened to the Thompson Twins. I love that song, and I heard it the other day, and I was like, oh, fuck. That is a great 80s song. And we have kind of an 80s love affair going on with the intro. And it's like, I definitely got to play that one. Then I looked up who it was, and I was like, oh, Thompson Twins. I always thought of the Thompson Twins as being just like bullshit.
Yeah.
Just horrible.
No, they got some jams.
They kind of were like the Ryan Leaf to me in my mind. Like,
who's that?
Oh, that was a quarterback for the San Diego Chargers. I meant.
Why did you think I was going to catch that reference?
Leaf Garrett. That's what I meant. That's a musician, right?
I don't know who that is either.
Leaf. You know, like the 16-year-old boy sensation that the music industry just produces something for. And
the Ed Sheeran.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yeah. Just horrible music, but that's a fucking great song.
It is a good song. I don't think they had any other hits, though.
Gotta be a one-hit wonder.
Yeah.
Kind of the theme of our intro. One-hit wonders only.
Kind of. We got a guest here.
We do. So what do you want to talk about today?
Hello, what's up?
Introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Justin Bordessa. I was drinking at the bar down the street, and these guys called me in here.
All right.
We got to go. I got to do this. You want to come be on a podcast? Because, yeah, come on over, man.
Beautiful. My dog died.
I wasn't going to bring it up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, I had the dog for 6 months, and great fucking dog. Still a puppy. He was 10 months old. And only knowing him for 6 months and like the strife that you go through with a puppy.
Right.
Like you're learning to love them because they're maniacs.
That was a high energy dog.
Yeah. And we had just started kind of turning the corner with him. And his training was starting to kick in. He was really like starting to be a good dog. I was looking at him like, wow, this is going to be fucking amazing. Well, the fuckhead breeder, whose name is Catherine, I don't know her last name, but I'd be happy to say it on there if I did, is breeding dogs with genetic defects.
Oh, wow.
She's in Sonoma, California. If you are out there and you're thinking about getting a German Shepherd from a chick named Catherine, don't do it. And he had a heart murmur, amongst other genetic defects, despite which he was still rad. Like I love that dog, but he had a heart attack and fucking died.
How did you know that the dog had a genetic defect?
Because we took him to the vet, and he told us that his testicle hadn't dropped. He only had one nut in the sack. And so we called him half sack. And that is a genetic defect, and you're not supposed to breed dogs that have that because it's super hereditary.
Yeah.
Every dog, female or male, will pass that gene on. And so that's like a major no-no in dog breeding.
Yeah.
So the fact that she was giving out dogs that had that defect.
Right. And you had problems with her from the get-go, from what I remember.
She was just a total, just a moron.
Yeah.
Impossible to communicate with.
Karen or Sharon?
Catherine.
Catherine.
Yep. My dog trainer actually looked her up and called animal control on her.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because of the way she was treating the dogs.
Yeah.
Doing things like that you're not supposed to do, like just feeding them raw chicken, like from the store, like just bought chicken, threw it in a bowl, and like that was their food. Which I don't know, I wouldn't have known that was not the thing to do.
This is definitely news to me.
But apparently, according to dog trainers, like that's like you don't just give them raw chicken with the bones and everything, you know. And so she called animal control on her twice, and
oh wow,
yeah. So hopefully this chick gets fucking shut down because it was crushing. Even though I was gonna say like I only got to know the dog for 6 months, so it wasn't like losing my best friend when he died. You know, of course, the boy was crying about it, and it was definitely traumatic. But we hadn't bonded yet; like we were still kind of getting to know him. So major bummer, but we're good. We're good. Thank you for asking.
It was. I didn't. we just got back from camping. Every weekend this year, we go to the same camping spot, and this was like 2 years ago. A friend of our daughter's died from carbon monoxide poisoning in his trailer. She was packing mules, and guy had the wrong kind of heater on his trailer, died. Wow. And then a year after that, we got a text that my brother-in-law had this massive, massive stroke that we thought he was going to die from. Got the call at the campground, and we're pulling into the campground, and my wife had said, she goes, I hope nothing happens. I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, well, every weekend we do this, we get some kind of horrific news.
Shit.
And then right after that, I got your text. I was just like, that's the thing. That's the thing that was supposed to happen.
Of horrible things that can happen, it could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
Dude, I was like tallying up the shitty things that happened this year.
This year
has been...
This year sucks.
A fucker.
Yeah.
We got James dying. Horrible things that happened with your son. I blew my knee out this year. My dog died. It's just been...
one thing after the other.
One thing after another. It's been fucking brutal this year. We're only halfway through.
Anyway, Justin, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good too, man. I'll definitely I'll definitely add some horror stories for the year. But yeah, man, I'm sorry to hear about your dog.
Yeah, it's all good.
Our mutual friend Steve also lost his longtime dog recently.
Did he?
Yeah, man. I think they're doing.
No, that was his. Is that his wife's name?
Yeah.
What was the? I don't remember the dog.
I don't remember the dog either.
Sorry, Steve. If you're
I have
listening.
a dog, but I hate dogs.
Steve's not listening.
You hate dogs?
Well, I don't hate them. That's a lie. I just don't like taking care of them. You know, I mean, I take care of them. I just don't want to have a dog because it's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
You know, you got to train them, you got to walk them, you got to feed them, all that stuff. And
so you're more of a cat guy.
You know, cats are nice because you just
those are fighting words where I'm from.
you just let them be, man. You know what I mean? That said, I mean, I love my dog as well. And so when you're telling me your story, man, I mean, I feel for you, man.
Yeah,
That's
thanks,
sad.
dude. Yeah, so as soon as we get back from vacation, we're getting another one.
Good.
Just paving right over.
Yes.
Paving right over the pain.
Yep. Just start dating again.
Exactly.
Just right off the bat. We were talking about dogs a bunch, and then I had mentioned something like that, and then it turns out the people we're camping with, his sister is like a major dog breeder, and so he knows a fair amount about it. He goes, "Oh no, you got to be like super, like she ages out the bloodlines and stuff like that." She goes, "No, you can't just keep turning out dogs. There's like a total science to it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're gonna get these like problems over and over." And I was saying that I am a dog guy, and if it wasn't for my wife, I'd probably have 6 dogs. Like I want all the dogs. More pets, the better. I fucking love it. We only have 2 dogs right now, and I'm still always looking for more dogs.
There's not really an equivalent to the like. There's no male version of the cat lady, right? Like with dogs.
Like pit bull guy?
Yeah, like you don't go like, oh, another like
dog
dude. Like that's just, you could have 10 dogs. People are like, yeah, fuck yeah. But with cats,
You don't see
it's
like political memes. You're like, I'm putting the over under 4 dogs on that guy.
Right.
Where you do with like the cat lady.
No, you're almost adding cred with every dog. You're like, that guy's rad. He probably has 6 dogs.
We were talking about our old English bulldog, Max, who you and I were talking about this. I mean, we did no training with the dogs whatsoever. We just got dogs, and they're the most perfectly behaved dogs. And I'm like, they're not well behaved so much as they just, Max, like doesn't behave.
There's no behavior.
Not that he misbehaves. Yeah, he just there's no behavior. He just kind of lays around and stares at things. It's more furniture than a dog, but yeah, best dog in the world.
Does he give you like love? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like he.
Yeah.
Does he like thump his stub of a tail when you walk in? Like it's.
Yeah.
His tail's like 2 inches long.
You do the one. He does the one twitch. You look at it. He goes like. It's like, oh, look how excited.
Oh, look at him. Look at him.
So
I love
happy.
you too, boy. Come here.
He'll get up onto the couch, takes 5 to 7 minutes, and then watch a movie with us.
How old is that guy? How old is Max?
Max is 9, turns 10 at the end of this summer.
So that's the little guy.
No, Max is the big one.
Who's the little guy, and how old
Loki.
is that one?
Loki is 4, I think.
What? Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we took Loki camping. We're going to take both dogs. I'm like, I don't think, I was like, is this for us or for them? Because Max does not want to go camping.
No.
He's perfectly happy here. And Jake watched him all weekend. Jake lives, one house down, 2 houses down. So he's perfectly content to just lay in the backyard and
nice.
Just get a tan on his
People
balls.
ask me all the time if I got a dog. I'll be there petting their animal or whatever. Oh, you got a dog? And I'm saying, no, I'm kind of like the surrogate parent to my neighbor's dog, which is pretty much perfect for me because.
Mm-hmm. Well, then he never has to die on your front doorstep.
God, yeah. So, question about that: like, were you guys all? Set the scene for me if you don't mind, because I'm curious. You guys are just all hanging out in the living room.
So
whole family's there.
I had taken him for a walk earlier in the day, and it was totally normal walk, just like full of energy, perfect normal walk. And then we got home, and we had friends coming over.
Mm-hmm.
Mike came over.
Yeah.
And said, let's take him over to the neighbor's house so he can play with their dog and get the energy out so he's not a maniac when the kids come over. And we took him over there, and he just was not into it. He didn't really want to play. He kind of tried a little bit, but then he just laid on their front doorstep. We're like, God, it's weird. He's acting strange. Like, something's up. So we go back home, and he lays down in front of our front door where he likes to lay because the breeze kind of comes under the door. And he just was just motionless. We're like, what's up, bud? Like, and I walked over, and his heart was beating like super fast.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's not normal. And then he kind of like opened his eyes and just like super wide stare into the distance.
Mm-hmm.
And I put my hand on him like, are you okay? And he just straightened his legs out like this. And then died.
Wow.
Right there.
Oof.
Just like fucking that.
So it wasn't until you came up and like inspected him that he kind of released it or whatever?
Pretty much.
Weird.
Yeah. I mean, you could see him, his heart was beating so fast. You're like, oh, that's not good.
Oh, really?
You hear that stuff all the time, man, about people waiting to say something to somebody before they pass. There's no reason to think that animals don't do it too,
Yeah.
It's probably waiting for you.
So you're saying I should have done something earlier?
You should have not.
Or not have
should
done
have not
it.
went and said anything to him.
Right. If we just ignore it, it'll go away.
Exactly. Could have been one of those ignored it, it goes away situation.
Gertrude goes, I think he's having a seizure. I'm like, he's not having a seizure. Actually, doesn't look very normal. Anyways, yeah.
I'm sorry, dude.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah.
So, speaking of, I think there's something you wanted to talk about, and we were just saying that, like, the equivalent of a cat lady, there's no reciprocal...
Dog dude?
Dog dude.
Yeah.
Right?
There's no spiritual inverse of cat lady.
There's cat men.
Yes, we call them, those are gay men.
Yes.
Those are men that are gay.
They are usually...
No offense, Justin.
Yeah.
Ooh, wait.
He's a real cat guy.
Oh, such a cat guy.
Yeah, that is kind of a derogatory...
What's he like? He's a cat guy. If you don't.
Yeah, he likes cats. But a dude, like a straight dude that just had a ton of cats, you would basically equivalent... what's the word?
Cat. A straight guy that's got a lot of cats.
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
I don't know this guy.
I think it is.
Really?
Maybe not a lot of cats, but a straight guy that just has cats and no dog, like that's obviously a...
My brother's the cat guy.
All right.
Definitely
I don't
straight.
know a single straight male that has more than one cat.
How many cats do your brother have?
Just one.
But he's not single.
No. Married with kids.
Okay. Maybe this
You get
guy
some wiggle. You get some wiggle room.
Cover, isn't it?
Of course. It's like, babe.
The cats really are the lazy man's pet. Because you don't have to do shit.
Yeah.
You don't have to feed them or anything. You just leave them outside.
Feed them.
And they just come back.
I mean, they can feed for themselves, like
Yeah.
wild cats.
They catch rats and stuff. Yeah, all the time, man.
I mean, I have a cat.
Yeah, and a dog.
2 dogs.
2 dogs.
Yeah.
Right. You always have to keep the ratio high.
What are you compensating for?
Yeah.
You always have to have more dogs than cats.
You do.
Then you're in the clear.
Otherwise,
Or at least equal.
Yeah.
We used to have 2 cats.
We did.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is why you got that other dog. Probably.
Right. Correct.
Anyways, what I'm trying to get to is this idea of a feminine man who exists in a world where the only reason that person can they exist in a world where masculine men kind of have created a safety zone for them to live in.
Yes.
Right? Does that ring true?
Yes.
And I was just thinking that a single dude with a bunch of cats is got to be a feminine dude. I mean, maybe there's some really masculine men out there that just love cats who, if they're offended by this, I hope they don't come and visit me because I said that. But there is this thing in the world where there's like a and we call it beta for a reason because it's there's not a gray area, right? There's this alpha kind of male personality, and then a clear delineation between that and a step down to this beta, more feminine dude who only can exist because there is the alpha dude kind of like creating a world that's safe,
laying down the infrastructure of society for him. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Justin brings up a good point though, because I also feel like a very admirable masculine trait is no maintenance. Cat, no maintenance.
0 maintenance.
Yeah.
But you're suspect. Though.
Is it masculine though, or is it just no commitment?
Yeah.
Because you can't really like go the full distance with it. Doing all the things that dogs need, training and feeding. In the sense, your dog's not going to feed for himself the way a cat can. Picking up shit in the backyard, cats kind of can just deal with it on their own.
I think it can be said that you don't train cats, but you kind of do, right? So if a cat shits in your house, you do have to whoop its ass and throw it out, right? So they'll learn. So you do have to train them, but not the same way as a dog. So, train...
Beating the shit out of your pet is very masculine.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Well, you cross the line, it becomes feminine, right? Where you're just emotionally reacting to the pet.
Okay.
That's a good point, man. Yeah, got to be in control, right?
You do.
Got to be in control, like just one kick.
Yes,
and then
just one.
put it out. Like
2 kicks is abuse. 1 kick is discipline.
That's too much. That's too much, man. Let me ask you this. All right, so like in regards to like cats and dogs, right? So and alphas, right? So an alpha dog might be considered like a wolf, right? Alpha cat might be considered like a mountain lion or a tiger or something, right? At what point does the alpha cat become the pussy cat? Is that a domesticated cat? Because I'll tell you what, a mountain lion is no joke, right? Even a bobcat. I mean, they're small. I think I could take one, right? If I'm in the cemetery over here and a bobcat jumps out, I'm pretty sure I'm going to take it.
I think a key like distinguishing feature of the alpha beta relationship is a pack lifestyle. And house cats, mountain lions, bobcats don't live in packs.
Right, solitary.
Lions do, but there's no really domesticated lions. Whereas with dogs and wolves, they have that, and humans, they have that kind of pack mentality.
Yes.
This is starting to sound like the filter theory, right?
The consensus filter. Do you have that 4chan thing handy?
Yeah.
Okay. This started out as a post on 4chan, and then just got my mind spinning, and I spent all weekend around the campfire just like thinking about this 4chan post. And then I found like receipts, like psychological studies that actually backs up what Jake has for us.
You want me to say it?
By the way, our cat's an alpha cat. It's a killing machine. It kills something every night, and it fights the dogs all the time and wins.
So your cat is living in a pack, even though that's not what cats are
with the dogs
predisposed to do. Yeah, with you and the dogs.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like asserted its dominance over them.
You could probably sit here and analyze this into believing that your cat is actually the head of the household.
Mm-hmm.
Like it provides more.
Well, the cat probably thinks that.
Well, yeah.
I don't think they do, man. I think that they know. Like they know that the owner is the head of the household, but they're going to try to raise up the ranks and be just below you. I don't think they think they're better than us at all.
Yeah. Well, admittedly, there could be some sort of contention going on for first place in this household that you're not aware of. You're always going to lose a fight you don't know that you're in.
It could also be the boot to the ribs.
All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in to Cat Talk. We'll be taking your calls after the break.
What's you want the consensus filter?
Yeah, can you read that?
Sure. This is not from me. This is from Anon. People who can't defend themselves physically, quotes or parentheses, women and low T men, cat people, parse information through a consensus filter as a safety mechanism. They literally do not ask, is this true? They ask, will others be okay with me thinking this is true? This makes them very malleable to brute force manufactured consensuses. If every screen they look at says the same thing, they will adopt that position because their brain interprets it as if everyone in the tribe, their brain will interpret it as everyone in the tribe believing it, basically. So if they see the message repeated enough, they'll think enough people believe the message. So they'll say, okay, this is what everybody's thinking. Only high T alpha males and aneurotypical people, hey autists, are actually free to parse new information with an objective, is this true filter. This is why a republic of high status males is best for decision making, democratic, but not democracy, only for those who are free to think. A lot going on there.
So this got my brain spinning, and we talked about this earlier in the week. And so I started looking up, turns out that's not that 4chan post, which you take everything on 4chan with a grain of salt, was based on some psychological studies. So it's actually kind of a legit thing.
Let's define what that consensus filter means. Not define, but just kind of a little bit more detailed because that could slip past you. So if I'm right, the consensus filter means that instead of thinking for yourself, is this right? You're thinking, is it acceptable to think that this is right?
What's the safe thing for me to be a part of right now, I guess, or be against?
Right, and that's kind of like if it's not safe, that means you might be ostracized from the group, kicked out of your tribe, have to fend for yourself, and probably die in the wild, like from a ancestral point of view, right? That comes from the people that rely on the strength of the group because they're not strong enough to fend for themselves. They have to think, what does the group want me to think in order to keep in good standing with the group? I got that right?
Pretty much. And to make the distinction is that this is different from if we leave here and I go to a backyard barbecue. I'm with a group of people that I might not know terribly well. And someone says something that I think is the stupidest shit I've ever heard. That doesn't mean that I jump right in and like, no, it's this. You know what I mean? It's, I don't want to.
That would be the autist. Line of reasoning.
Right. And someone with a vast lack of social awareness. Right. But this is the actual way that you start to think about things. This operates in your subconscious. So I started out like, have you heard of mimetic desires?
Yeah.
And so Jake and I, so this is mimetic. Mimetic.
Like
versus
mime.
With an I.
Mimetic
Exactly.
versus like memes, which are two different things.
Right.
And I'm halfway through his podcast.
Meaning, like, you're miming.
Yeah, mimicry.
Mimicry, right.
Yeah, with an I is mimicry, so you're seeing something and you're like replicating it. With an E is a bit of a different thing, so it's more of like on a social level. So spreading information or adopting a perspective based on something on a more social level as opposed to seeing. I mean, they're very similar.
Yeah.
Well, let's just be clear, just so where people understand what we're saying.
We're talking about mimetic, M-I-M.
Mimetic desire. So you want to be perceived the same way that your tribe is.
Yeah, so take it down to like the micro level. Like Justin's like, what the fuck did I just walk into here? Is we are all living under the false pretense, and we're all guilty of this, but on a varying degree of levels, right? We're all living under this false pretense that there's a direct line between who we are as people and the things that we want. That's not true. It's constantly influenced by the things around us.
Right.
And I came across several articles. He goes, oh, I woke up at the age of 30 and like, I'm going to run a marathon. Like, that's what I want to do. I got this idea to run a marathon. Meanwhile, all my friends in my social circle were also came across the same idea that they're going to run a marathon, or I'm going to get a dog. COVID just hit, so I'm going to get a dog. And he goes, without me realizing, I was the last guy in my friend group that didn't have a dog. Right? This is how, and it operates on like the subconscious. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
So we're biologically conditioned, like in our subconscious, to want the things that we know will kind of already be approved by others, all of us, no matter what.
Right.
But this, to go back to the 4chan post, they did a study and they said low T males and women, particularly younger women, are way more susceptible to mimetic desires than high T men. And this gets into the consensus filter and the way they broke this down. Okay, so you have to go, well, I know a guy with low T that, fought in the UFC. Like, no, I'm not talking about that guy. Like, those are two different things. Is everyone in this study was a low T man or a woman. Like, you understand those differences, right? Mm-hmm. That makes sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Low T man versus woman.
The 2 or 3 conversations I had, I'm like, you're not following me here.
Well, every study that's worth anything is not based on an anecdote. It's based on trying to get to the average person that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's worthless.
Yeah. It's like having a conversation with someone and they don't understand what per capita means. I'm like, okay, try to follow me here. So this basically, to go back to the 4chan kind of post, is like there's this innate biological mechanism which is enacted for the sake of self-preservation. Because if you are unable to defend yourself physically, you like in your biology, it's in there like it's like the safety in numbers approach. Like, I'm going to need these people. If shit ever goes off the rails, like I can't handle it myself. I need these people. And that's what builds the consensus filter in people's brains. And so everything that they say, everything they do, even the shoes they buy or where they go out to eat or whatever, goes through this subconscious consensus filter in their brain. Like, I need to constantly be signaling to the rest of the tribe that I'm one of you guys. I'm doing the same thing, which was... I can't think of a better display of that than COVID, for example. Right?
Yeah.
All the meaningless rituals, the mask wearing, doing all these things that didn't really make any difference. You know what I mean? It's like, still to this day.
Make any sense if you were the kind of person that would think about something logically and go, how is this actually supposed to help? Like, no. We're doing the thing. Because that's what keeps us in good standing with the tribe.
And there's like these concentric circles within this, because you have to go back. This all goes back to, you ever heard of Rene Girard? He was a French philosopher.
Yeah.
He came up with mimetic thinking. Mm-hmm. He was like kind of the godfather of this kind of line of thought. And as I'm reading this, I couldn't help but think when we lived in San Francisco, remember the Mission San Francisco, the hipsters?
Mission hipster?
They're like, yeah, we're like counterculture. Like, look at us and our anti-mimetic behavior. I'm like, you guys are all wearing the same women's jeans, the same pair of low-top Vans, the same hair, the same mustache, the same track bike.
The same fixie.
The same faded 80s metal shirt that a band you don't listen to. I was like, you guys, how is this counterculture? Like, you guys are wearing a uniform. You look like some dystopian homeless T-ball team. You guys all look exactly alike. Explain this to me. And so, like, you see how it works, like, where people think, like, movements become where they think it's anti-mimesis, as they would say, and it's basically a team sport.
Yeah.
It's like, I have to dress like a homeless bike messenger so all my friends know that.
Wouldn't you say, though, that everyone... you think of, like, a dairy farmer in Ferndale, a guy that wakes up at 4 a.m., and just works his fingers to the bone all day, like, couldn't care less what people thought about him. Like, he also is doing that. He's wearing his uniform.
Well, kind of, but you get to a point, like, a certain amount of, like, the dairy farmer or the construction worker. Dude, this is what I was thinking about around the campfire when everyone else is having a normal conversation, is there's a utilitarian aspect. So he's going to wear boots, rubber boots, the farmer. Why? Because he's got to walk out in a field full of cow shit and hook up a bunch of sprinklers. So this, from a utilitarian's perspective, this just makes sense. This is what I wear. I'm going to wear the same jeans every day.
Yeah, but they all, when they're not kicking through piles of cow shit, they would wear Wranglers, a flannel shirt tucked in.
Yeah. Cowboy
boots. Like, there is also, there is a uniform.
Yeah.
For them.
Yeah, like I say, everyone's guilty of this to kind of some extent.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Make
sure.
an argument real
But
quick.
the cowboy, please remember what you're about to say, but the cowboy in Ferndale is not under the delusion that he is counterculture.
No.
Either. He's he's clear with what he's doing. It's like, this is what you're supposed to wear. I'm just going to wear it. I don't know if that plays into what you're thinking or not, but
I think your options in Ferndale for clothes shopping are fairly limited. So you live in you live in Leggett, man, you're going to get a certain type of jean. If you're going to dress any differently, you got to go to the Bay Area.
Fair point.
Right?
What kind of clothing store would you open in Ferndale?
Carhartt, man. Unless there was competition.
There is.
Picky. In Eureka.
So I think that's part of it too, is like that guy, that farmer has limited access to what's available to him. And
but my aunt and uncle owned a clothing store in Ferndale, and they basically curated the style that people would wear. And it was based on what was popular, what was hot, what country music singers were doing. I mean, it was definitely based on a theme of country living.
They were selling things that they knew that people wanted.
Yeah. But I think they also had a hand to play in, what's the new fit. When Lace Up Ropers came out, the cowboy boot that you laced up.
Yeah.
They had a hand in kind of like saying, this is the new thing. These are what the rodeo guys are wearing, and people bought them for the coolness of them.
Yeah.
Which kind of backs up your argument. Like, everybody's wearing their costume, like everybody's trying to fit in.
Yeah.
Is it they're trying, or is that, again, that's like the options, right? So your family had a clothing store there. Options were limited to what they thought that they would buy.
Yeah, I think that the difference, though, is lies somewhere in this idea of being honest with what you're doing, or being kind of duped into it without you knowing. Like, you think you're being this counterculture hipster in the mission, doing your own thing, like going your own way, but actually you're lying to yourself. You're just doing what everyone else is doing. In small towns, people are they don't want to stand out. They don't have a need to be different from their tribe. It doesn't mean that they're not free thinkers. It's just that, like, specifically with clothing, it's just like, no, this is just kind of our thing. This is how we all...
It made me think. I was actually going through the catalog of all the people I've known in my life, because we all fall prey to this. I have, personally. It's like, oh, well, I bought those shoes because whatever, you know what I mean? On some, like, low grade subconscious level. I was trying to think. I was like, well, everyone does it, but some of us do it like way more than others. I'm not getting hung up on just like the clothes we wear or how we look, but I want to eventually get into like how people actually think about things. And
we're going to talk about Crocs, I assume.
I was going to do something on Crocs. I was like, I don't want to start throwing jabs at my friends, especially after he just lost his dog. But I thought
well, it's a good example because like fucking Crocs they're made fun of like relentlessly, right? They were the shoes in Idiocracy,
right?
And they look so stupid, whatever. But I don't give a fuck. They're very convenient footwear. They slip on. They're made of rubber. They're indestructible, and you can get in a fight with them just simply by flipping the loop,
putting them in offensive mode,
putting it into tactical mode.
Oh, offensive mode is the Crocs that have the swastika on the toes.
You just spin the symbols into a swastika.
I need a pair of shoes I can just slip into, have to run to my truck. I was like, there's got to be something else besides Crocs. I'm not going to be the last guy in my group that buys Crocs.
Yeah, dude, there is. Just go your own way. Find your own footwear. You don't have to mimic what Jake and I wear on our feet.
Yes. But to go back to take it from mimetic desires, but mimetic thoughts or mimetic thinking, from which Rene Girard kind of was his whole thing that he wrote about, I started thinking about COVID, and this is what Matthias Desmet was writing about with mass formation psychosis, is the ritualistic behavior that everyone kind of gloms onto. And I was like, yeah, like that's how these kind of thought patterns go. And as ridiculous as they seem that they are, but they catch on it. Everyone is doing the thing wherever it is. Everyone's on the same day, stops shaking your hand and gives you the fist bump. Everyone's wearing the mask outside. My personal favorite is during COVID, a bunch of guys I knew all grew their hair and beards out because
you can't shave
because you apparently don't have a razor, and they would see each other out in public with their mask on and point to their hair like, hey, COVID, am I right? And they point to each other's like long hair. I'm like, this is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever witnessed. This is like the most meaningless, ritualistic behavior I've ever seen. I'm like, this is, and I didn't know what mimetic thinking was back then, but as I was reading all these articles, I'm like, oh, that's the mimetic thinking. It's your kind of going through these like useless activities to just signal to the other people, like I'm like you, right? We have no means for which to shave because of COVID. It's like that make that make sense to me,
right? It's ridiculous.
So I was reading this article out of several of them that I was reading while I was supposed to be enjoying my camping trip with my family, and they had a picture at one of these articles. This guy's name is Luke Burgess. He's on Substack, and I highly suggest checking out his articles. His whole jam is anti-mimetic thinking. It's really interesting. But the picture on the top of the article was a bunch of salmon swimming upstream, up a waterfall. And I was like thinking about that around the campfire. I'm like, what a perfect kind of picture. And like he didn't talk about it in the article, but he was trying to paint the picture of like someone not going with the flow, swimming upstream, right? Not doing the thing, whatever it is. And I was like, it's kind of interesting. I would have thought he would have maybe mentioned this, because the thing that popped into my mind is, why do salmon swim upstream?
Yeah. Just find a spot downstream to lay your eggs.
Yes. But they're going upstream to thrive, to live, to carry on their gene pool, right? To spawn. That's why they're going upstream.
But why not just do it down here?
Well, what kind of
the waterfall?
What kind of salmon provides no resistance to the flow of the river at all?
Lazy salmon.
Dead salmon.
Oh, dead. Yeah.
dead fish.
Yes. Well, if you are lazy, you've kind of died inside. So they're similar kind of, right?
Yes. And it made me think, so this will seem like a bit of a right turn, but you know who Jake Tapper is?
Yeah.
CNN?
Oh, yeah.
CNN, right? Whatever, it doesn't matter. Yeah. One of the things. And then he just recently released his book. Do you know what the book is about?
About how Joe Biden was
right?
Had dementia the whole time.
They have 200 White House insiders that can confirm what the entire nation already knew for the last 4 years. And he wrote a book about it. And he's talking about, and he's getting slaughtered on his press tour. Everyone's like, no, dude, we're not buying it. You can't say this for 4 years when all of us with our own eyes and ears are going like, no, this dude is out to pasture. And you guys carried water for him. And now you're writing a book. It's the same thing that Andrew Cuomo did.
Why do you think he did that?
Why do I think he wrote the book? Probably. Well, he got a huge advance for it, so money.
Yeah, but the guy's filthy rich.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing as Emily Oster declaring a pandemic amnesty.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they're trying to do a 180 and go like, no, like you guys had me pegged all wrong. I'm like, well, we have hours of footage of you on cable TV saying this one thing.
Yeah, like it's kind of trying to save his name a little bit. I heard a pretty interesting theory just today that because Jake Tapper doesn't need money, right?
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't even need to save his name. All of them have horrible.
He would have been better off not saying, just
totally
moving on to the next thing.
I mean, him and Rachel Maddow and
Joe Scarborough,
all of those
Mika Brzezinski.
Yeah, they have a horrible track record.
Yeah.
They don't need to save their name. They're just going to keep doing the same thing that they've been doing all along.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like his career was so in jeopardy that he had to go do this to try to save his career. He's going to be just fine. Isn't he the same guy that had that false story about being in the helicopter?
No, that was Brian Williams.
Oh, okay. Anyways, the theory that I heard was that they want to now roll out a emphasis on the 25th Amendment where you can pull the president out of office if he's got dementia.
Yeah.
And so they're going to try to make Trump take psychological evaluations and use that to try to pull Trump out of office. And that he's just kind of laying the groundwork for like, obviously this is a problem. We can't let this happen again, as if he wasn't totally complicit in doing that the entire time.
I haven't heard this theory.
Yeah, kind of interesting. Dude, by the way, I think, so the other thing that came out this week, we're totally detouring from
no worries
the mimetic desires thing, but we'll come back to it. The other thing that came out was Joe Biden has stage 5 prostate cancer.
Prostate cancer, which is in his bones. Which prostate cancer is the most easily detectable, and I think the slowest growing cancer that you can have as a man.
Unless it's turbo cancer, which the guy got a bunch of fucking vaccine shots, air quotes, vaccine shots, on camera.
Mm-hmm.
None of us thought he actually got the jab.
Yeah.
It was all fake, but could be turbo cancer. But check this out. So I made a prediction back like a year ago before the election happened that Donald Trump was not going to be president.
Mm-hmm. So did I.
And that what the Democrats were actually going to do was a Spiro Agnew move like they did with President Nixon, which, just as a refresher...
Best name in politics, by the way.
Totally. They kicked Spiro Agnew out of office for something that happened years ago when he was the governor of Maryland, and really wasn't that big of a deal, but they got him to resign so that they could replace him with Gerald Ford. And then they went after Nixon in order to get Ford, who was on the Warren Commission, into the White House, a former CIA agent, into the White House. Okay, what happened with that, who knows, but let your imagination run wild, right? They've got their CIA guy into the White House. And I made the same prediction. They were going to do that with Joe Biden. They were going to kick Kamala out. And my evidence for that was when they found cocaine next to her parking spot in the White House parking garage. And then put in someone like Gavin Newsom or Michelle Obama or whoever their person was.
Yeah.
and then have some reason to get rid of Biden. And I think that they knew that he had cancer at the time.
There's no way they couldn't know that.
If it wasn't turbo cancer.
Yeah.
And that this was all part of their plan. And what happened was Joe Biden went into the debate with Donald Trump, totally shit the bed, and they realized they couldn't actually pull it off.
Yeah.
But this cancer diagnosis was their ace in the hole in order to get him out of office after they kicked out Kamala Harris. But after he fucked up the debate, Kamala Harris did this total like power move, like, you can't kick me out. I'm the, woman, person of color,
right?
Like, the everything that you guys have been saying is the most important things in the world, the DEI statistics. I'm that person. And she kind of took over. But their plan was to have Biden run. They knew he had cancer. They were going to pull him and then make this VP appointment that they had into the Gerald Ford of our time. And it just got fucking side rail. So I'm going back and saying that my prediction was accurate back then, but Joe Biden fucked it up.
Justin, what do you think of all this?
It's interesting stuff to think about, man, for sure. Absolutely.
You think I'm right, huh?
I think you bring up some good points. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
I think that, the whole situation is just kind of interesting, man.
What kind of what kind of political interest do you have in the world, if any? Do you vote and are you actively following this stuff?
I do vote. I like to think of myself as a complete moderate on all regards. What's the style of thinking you were talking about? Mimetic
thinking.
So I like to think of myself as completely opposite. For instance, we had this measure on the California ballot about not allowing quotation slave labor in prisons, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I talked to some friends in law enforcement. I had a friend who was locked up. I asked him his opinion on it. I just try to gather as much information as I can and make a decision. But I think I've realized is that Peck mentality is so fucking strong that democracy, that I just try. I think I'm not going to vote anymore, honestly.
Yeah. I know a lot of people
connect those dots for me. How'd you get there from that particular measure?
Well, it's not that particular measure. It's actually a few of them, and it's the last few voting cycles. It's I just feel like people don't put enough thought into it, man. One night I went out to have some more beers, of course. Man, I went down to this nice little out of the way pub, and I sit down next to this guy. I've got my little voter pamphlet, and I'm sitting there, and I got my highlighter, my pen. I love to geek out on this shit, right?
Cool.
And so I'm just like, I asked this guy about, I don't know, we got a smart rail here in Santa Rosa that runs from the northern border of Sonoma County down into Marin County. And, I'm just talking to him about passing this bill that involves funds going to this thing. And this guy just freaks out on me, starts talking about immigrants and all this and shit, and he takes off. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's going to come back and shoot me, because I was talking about the train. Right. And so I think that kind of set the wheels in motion.
He was against the train?
He said nothing about the train. He just took my words on one very specific local issue and connected it to a bigger idea.
He had racist Tourette's.
He had something, man. He had something. And it just that started the wheel in motion. And as we went through a few voting cycles, man, I think it's just clear that people don't think independently. They don't reach out to people that might have an opposing view and say, hey, what do you think? It just doesn't happen. So I feel like it's pointless, And it brings me back, speaking of COVID, one of the best books I read during COVID was The Republic by Plato, which basically tells the story of Socrates, in which he is having an argument about what justice is. And honestly, chapter 8 was, I think, the chapter that really hit home, because he brings up these different levels of government in, you've got the benevolent king, I think, is the highest grade, and the bottom is tyranny, and just above tyranny is democracy. Right? And just above that is oligarchy, right? And so which is thought provoking. I don't know if I agree with that at all, but it just made me think, like, is what we're doing right?
Our founding fathers just were terrified of the concept of democracy.
They were, and it's a lot different than what we have now, right?
Yeah.
Their ideas, what they were expressing, what they were fighting for, is a lot different than not only what we are now, but what a lot of people think we should be or that we were. I'll leave it at that.
What are your thoughts on the consensus filter? Where do you fall in terms of agreeing or disagreeing with that concept, as meaning an idea shows up and it's terrible, but like in our day and age, a terrible idea can be broadcasted with such a tremendous volume, and people might think that because of the volume of the broadcast, it's what everybody else is on board with. And now you start just getting all these people that are in line with this ridiculous concept because it is, again, just broadcasted with such a major volume. So that's how you end up with what seems to be like a huge swath of the population in line with a specific ideology. But in I mean, at the end of the day, you don't know anybody that actually thinks this is true. You've never met anybody that thinks this idea is a good idea, but you're just buried in it. So,
well, it's very useful to, if you have a democracy, which we are getting closer and closer to every day. I mean, California is even closer than most states because we have the, what's the system called where people can bring things to the ballot and the legislature doesn't have to actually vote on them. And propositions. We have the proposition option on the ballot. So we basically have a democracy. And if you can make it so that every single person's vote counts, then it is very useful to rely on this idea of mimetic behavior to influence people and policy. Whereas if you had an actual representative republic, like only the people with a stake in the, with skin in the game were allowed to vote, then it wouldn't matter as much. People's public opinion wouldn't matter if the public didn't actually get to vote.
Okay, sure. Sort of like the Starship Troopers approach, where you got to go through all this military time serving in order to get your citizenship. Once you have your citizenship, then you have a voice and
that's how it used to be. I mean, not exactly the military
landowners and
yeah, exactly. And that was a way better system. More people voting is probably the biggest reason why our population is so easily manipulable.
Yeah, I mean,
our system is just totally
the joke that the truest measure of democracy, like a gang rape, all these people,
yeah. 9 out of 10 people agree on gang rape.
A little bit ham-handed, but
so the going back to this idea that women and low T men are more, how did you phrase it? Are more susceptible
to mimetic thinking, mimetic desires.
And meanwhile, you have the high T men who are building things and fighting battles and protecting people. They're the people that are going to actually go learn self-defense, learn how to use a gun, become cops, become the people that like protect the rest of the society. It made me think of the cuttlefish. So
okay,
the cuttlefish is a what's the word? They're like an octopus, an No, cephalopod.
Cephalopod, yeah.
Cephalopod. And apparently they're extremely intelligent. They say that maybe more intelligent than octopus, which are also very intelligent. Some things that I saw said that they basically will attribute the level of intelligence of a 6-year-old human to these animals. So they're really smart in the animal kingdom. And the cuttlefish is really good at mimicry. So they can camouflage themselves to their background. They can do it. You can cut off all of the light in a box. And so there's absolutely nothing. They can't see anything. And they'll still be able to change their skin color and the texture of their skin to mimic the rock that's behind them. Right? Speaking of mimicry.
Yeah.
And they're so intelligent and so good at this that the male cuttlefish will, the smaller ones who can't compete with the larger ones are very territorial. They compete kind of like, I don't know, like deer do, like where the big buck is the alpha and it gets access to all the women. Same thing with these cuttlefish. They'll do the same thing. And so these big, fierce males will battle. Meanwhile, the smaller males will change their appearance to mimic a female. And then they'll get to sneak in while the big males are fighting. They'll sneak in and they'll get to breed with the female.
Is that a high T move or a low T move, in your opinion?
Very low T.
Okay.
Obviously, right? That's the biggest bitch move that you can think of. And we know people who behave that way.
It's like putting on a dress to get into the women's locker room.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
No, it's what we call white knights. Is that dudes that feminize themselves and approach, females with this very like emo, like feminized kind of persona. Like, we should go get coffee. I'd love.
I'm so sorry. Your man is, he's so violent, and so you guys are always fighting, and you're crying right now. Here's a shoulder to cry on, and we know plenty of people that behave that way.
Yeah, and I always said like I have more respect for the douchey frat guy that's just laying it out there like, I'm just here to get laid on spring break.
Totally.
as opposed to the fucking emo white knight that's just like laying this groundwork for like weeks of like
who seems so like sensitive and emotional and he's in touch, but he's also trying to get laid.
Yeah.
Right? That guy sneaks in the back door and hooks up with the chick. Like it's the biggest bitch behavior.
Start calling those guys cuttlefish.
They are cuttlefish.
Yes.
Exactly.
It's like false safety, man. They're like presenting false safety.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, no, I'm not really trying to get with you, but that's what they're doing.
They are.
Right?
Exactly.
It's a lie.
It is a lie. And here's the interesting thing that I've been thinking about because I've listened to like 3 podcasts on cuttlefish.
We all grieve in our own ways.
The small male cuttlefish would not be able to exist without the large males in the population. Like if there were no large males, they would then have to compete with each other for the females. They're only able to carry on this lifestyle because there's these big males who are battling it out. And what's interesting is the actual gene pool is about 50-50. The large males are there's fewer of them, but they're able to reproduce at the same rate that the small males are. And if you think evolutionarily, if the tactic that the small males used was more effective than what the big males did, then all the big males would be kind of like eventually worked out of the gene pool. But that's not the case. Like you have this, and it's no coincidence that they're very intelligent, right? That they can figure this thing out. And it's funny that what we're talking about is mimetic behavior. These guys are literally they're mimicking females in order to get into this position with the female fish. And if it was more effective, then the big males never exist anymore. but it's not. They only can survive because they have these strong alpha males doing the thing that they're doing to protect the females, to create this environment, this competition environment, and their smart little brains gave them this backdoor into the world of mating with each other. And it's just such a good metaphor for the world that we live in. Like, we would not all survive if every male just mimicked this female behavior. Right?
It's interesting.
Like, you need the men to do that, but without the strong men who are like maybe a little extreme, maybe a little violent, maybe a little hard to get along with, without them, you wouldn't have this room for men being kind of weak and sensitive and emo, like you said, like to be able to fit into this gap that they're leaving. And we would be living in a world that was probably the world that our current culture, what we're actually supposed to want and supposed to do according to mainstream media, the rejection of masculinity, like that world that they want us to live in would be horrible. We wouldn't have all of the things that men did. We wouldn't have roads and bridges and engineering and dangerous jobs and all of the things that actually made Western civilization shine as an example of what the rest of the world should live up to, right? We would just all be living in communism, basically, in this neutered existence.
Yeah, it'd be just this mimetic collectivist society. It'd be an absolute hell. I want to throw this in that I ended up on an article about anti-mimetic behavior that this Luke Burgess guy wrote about. And he lists 25 ways to basically execute anti-mimetic lifestyle. Most of it's pretty benign and blasé, and it's just like, why go to dinner at 4? Go to dinner, breaking out of your routine, expose yourself to art, new art, like go and look at it, not go show a statue of your genitals.
Don't put on your raincoat.
But the number 17 on the list I thought was the greatest one, because this is one that I've employed in my life probably for the last maybe 15 years. This is in the spirit of James, because James is like, so what do we do? Is silence. He says, immerse yourself in silence. So silence is the mimetic quieter. And what he means is by silence is what? What do you do? What do you do when you're sitting on your porch, no podcasts, no conversation, entirely by yourself? What's the one thing you're doing?
Thinking about the different ways to build my fence.
Okay. Yes. But thinking.
Think.
Yeah, you're thinking. You're alone with your thoughts. And then from there, you take your thinking and you walk out the front door and you go like, okay, whatever I was thinking about, whatever the thing is, I go out my front door. I'm like, does this make sense? And then all you're doing by thinking and not downloading whatever bullshit narrative there is, or whatever biased podcast, news source, TV show, conversation with someone, or whatever, you're just alone in your own thoughts. Is you're employing the skeptic brain. And the skeptic brain, we've done this before with when we were covering the Matthias Desmond stuff, but you're allowing the brain permission to ask questions. And what mimetic behavior is the antithesis of that. It's like, no, don't ask a bunch of questions. Don't start trying to swim upstream. Like, just go with the flow with everyone else. You don't have to start questioning everything. And all you do is you just are alone in your own thoughts, which is why, when I listen to a podcast and someone says something interesting, I'll, because I'm driving around a lot for work, I'll turn it off. I'm like, I'm just going to think about that for 20 minutes. And I'm going to see if I arrive at the same conclusion. I don't know exactly where they're going with this, but I want to see if I get to the same place in my mind, or am I going someplace different from that? I'll just marinate on that thing. That's why I think I love hunting so much. If you post up on the top of a mountain, I'm like, I'm going to wait for that deer to come through here. I have to stay here for 4 hours. Mm-hmm. And I love it. I just sit there and just let the mind go fucking hog wild. It's like a cerebral Rumspringa. It's like, whew,
yeah,
let's do this thing. And we did that camping. It's like I was just sitting around the campfire, and you just start thinking, you just start asking questions, start throwing fucking shit on the wall and seeing like what comes out. You go like, 2 planes, 3 towers fell. The jet fuel was so like explosive that it melted the steel beams, except for the jet fuel that
didn't ignite. It fell down the elevator shaft.
Yeah. And just, everything, just questions. Stevie Wonder's blind, right? Yeah. Why is he always sitting courtside in Lakers games? Can you explain that to me? And all it does is it just frees up the skeptic brain to go like, I just want to ask questions, and to go back to like the COVID stuff. Like that's how we started this podcast. That's what I started thinking about. Like all I would do is sit in my backyard and just think about stuff. And I walk up my front door. And I'm like, does this make sense? What's going on? Does this make sense at all? And that's anti-mimetic thinking. And I didn't know that that's what it was called back then.
Here's one for you to think about.
Okay.
Have you heard about the idea that China is not nearly as populated as they say it is?
I have.
You've been hearing about this?
I've heard that about the world. Some guy broke it down. He goes, I think there's only 500 million people in the entire world.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So we're there.
It's pretty wild.
We're at Bill Gates' number right now. Yeah, apparently, like the theories about China right now, and I've heard a few podcasts actually like bring receipts for this. First, I saw a YouTube video on it, and then I listened to a podcast that kind of broke it down. That it's possible that China only has like 400 million people in it right now.
That makes sense, because I'm always wondering, like, if I was in China and I was oppressed by this regime, would I be trying to have a bunch of kids in there? Like, it just doesn't seem, like the pandas, they can't have sex because they don't even want to have sex. They don't want to procreate because they're outside of their natural element.
Right.
They got all the stress of living in a cage. They got all these, but they're pandas. They wake up and they eat and they just sit there. Like, why not just fucking have a kid, right? But in their minds, this is so far removed from what they want. They want to be out in the fucking wild doing their thing.
Humans want to be free.
Humans want to be free.
It's like the weed that grows up in the crack of the sidewalk. And if you're not free, then you're like a panda that's being kind of oppressed.
Here's one. Is it Indians or Native Americans?
Indians.
Okay, it's Indians.
Yeah.
Okay, why are we not supposed to say Indians?
El Norte.
Even that's a woke white person.
Okay, but what's the reason that we're not supposed to say Indians?
Because this isn't India, and allegedly Columbus thought he landed in India, but I don't buy that.
Okay, Columbus, European colonialist arrived in America what year? Roughly 1492. And according to the woke thing, that you shouldn't say Indians because he erroneously thought that he had landed in India. Okay. Right?
Yep.
Okay. When did India become a country? 1858.
So
there was no India.
There was no India.
India was Hindustan. There was no such thing as India.
Whoa.
Yep.
To which my wife said, like, can you go hang out with them next door?
Have you, let's just get out there. Have you been paying attention to the idea that all of the buildings in America have been here for a long time?
That's, what's the word for that? Tourette, I forget. There's hold on.
Yeah, it's conspiracy Tourette's.
No. There's
guilty as charged, Your Honor.
So Eli sent me this thing that was, and it.
Most good stories start with that.
It's pretty like, on its face, it's easy to dismiss, but there's some evidence. It's not proof, but there's evidence in the short little
Tartarian. It's Tartarian.
The Tartarians.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I know.
They do throw out some pretty interesting questions. Like at this point in time, and like when Lewis and Clark were discovering, America, the interior of America, there was nothing. And then like 100 years later, there was everything. And it's like, is that really possible that they built it all that quickly? I mean, yes, it's possible, but it does raise some interesting questions.
Yeah, like all the granite and stuff that they use for those buildings had to be imported from Europe and had to be transported on horse and buggy, and all of these, the Tartarian thing's got some interesting legs to it, but like it's kind of just hand waved away by a lot of people that don't have the interest in
the mimetic
drilling down.
No, I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
Well, time is a finite resource, so digging into every conspiracy theory, it's like, is it worth my time? That for me, that's the reason that I don't really put a lot of effort into it. Like, am I really going to spend a lot of time on that?
Well, you wake up tomorrow and you find out that it's true, that there was some civilization here that they don't tell you anything about, and all of these structures existed when the Europeans came. Like, you still got to go to work tomorrow. What are you going to do with that information?
Yeah, it's like that Venn diagram.
That's the bitch about the conspiracy theories, though. People go, well, that's a wild conspiracy theory. I'm like, so was saying that code came from a lab 4 years ago. So I'm going to look into this.
So was atrazine turning the frogs gay.
Do you guys have any conspiracy theories that you've come up with on your own that you haven't heard anywhere else?
Oh, shit.
Yeah, booster age, which turned out to be true.
Elaborate.
I was driving around towards the end of COVID, and this lady just lost her shit. She was wearing a mask, and
just one,
just the one. She was by herself in the car, so
she didn't need to.
Yeah, just the one. Okay. And I'm like, is this like what's? I was like, when I see behavior like that, I'm confused. Like I don't engage. I'm just like, she's just like maniacally like pounding her horn and like fully had like lost her faculties pretty much. I was like, what an odd way to behave, like in front of everyone else. It was on Steel Lane, a bunch of traffic there. And then it came out like, maybe she has it just popped in my head, like maybe she has booster rage. I think if you take too many boosters, like it starts to develop like psychotic behavior in someone.
Like steroids, sort of like too many steroids.
Yeah. And so I brought it up as a joke, made a whole bit about it. Like we had like BRL1, booster rage level 1, BRL2, the whole thing. Like, well, there's a hierarchy, you know what I mean? And once you add your 9th booster, like you're clearly, you're going full like Michael Douglas falling down at some point. And then, fucking shit you not, a week later, the WHO releases a document saying that one of the side effects of the COVID booster is psychotic behavior. I was like, this was the most ridiculous thing I could come up with. It turned out to be true.
I'd rather be than with you here today. Please don't cry.